It hasn't been that long since the last NBA Finals, thanks to schedule changes and the season being thrown into question. But basketball is back, and every NBA season comes with some breakout players that step their game up past their usual level. It's hard to predict which players will do this during which year, but in this video, we'll go into some players that might just be ready for a breakout year during this season. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We're giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice, so be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter this giveaway. It's really that simple. Donte DiVincenzo. If you're a fan of college basketball, you might remember Donte DiVincenzo, especially if you happen to be a fan of Philadelphia college basketball and the Villanova Wildcats in specific. DiVincenzo was a major factor in college with Villanova and has 2 national championships to prove it, from 2016 and 2018. His numbers consistently improved as his college career continued until the point where he was in contention to be a first-round pick after declaring for the draft. As we all know, DiVincenzo was eventually taken by the Milwaukee Bucks with the 17th overall pick and has a pair of years in the NBA at this point. But what is it about this player that had 9 points per game last season that makes him one of the breakout prospects for the future? One of the answers is efficiency. We haven't seen DiVincenzo get a major role with the Bucks yet, but his play has scaled up well since his rookie season, where he only featured in 27 games and played in an average of 15 minutes per game. In his second year in the league, he received more use as his minutes per game went up to 23 and his points per game increased to 9.2, with 4.8 rebounds per game additionally. His existing numbers place him into a sixth-man role of sorts with the Bucks, as he's the 6th highest scoring player on their roster based on the numbers from last season. However, DiVincenzo shot 62% at the rim last season and had a true shooting percentage of 55.7%, which looks encouraging for the future considering his numbers have gone up each year of his career so far. Them going up again this season doesn't look like something out of the question, and the Bucks could use the extra help to get out of the Eastern Conference. The big star in Milwaukee, Giannis Antetokounmpo, re-signed with the team with the largest extension in league history last December. The Bucks are looking to start winning and not waste another one of his seasons after being eliminated in the second round in the 2020 playoffs. We shouldn't be too surprised if we see the Bucks make some changes compared to last year and give promising prospects like DiVincenzo a chance after more established players failed to get out of the second round last year. DeAndre Ayton. You may have forgotten it by now, with more flashy players having come out of college since then, but the Phoenix Suns took DeAndre Ayton with the number 1 overall pick in 2018. The pick was a little bit of a throwback to the time when the NBA was more dominated by centers than it was by guards and small forwards. And for the Suns, it was the first time ever that they had picked number 1 overall. They chose Ayton over others, including Luka Doncic, a decision that would come back to bite them, as Doncic became one of the biggest stars in the game, and Ayton developed as a good, but not superstar level player. But it's too early to say that Ayton just isn't going to be the guy to take the Suns to the promised land. They did take him with the number 1 pick overall, and while they ended up with him and not the true future superstar that Luka Doncic is, the Suns should still have a hometown hero on their hands that played in high school and college in Arizona and is now representing the state at the highest level. The Suns have good reason to keep putting faith in him, even if he dropped off the radar for everyone at the start of last season. That's because Ayton was suspended for breaking the league's PED policy and was put out of 25 games at the start of the season by the suspension. With the season shortened, that meant that the Suns only actually had Ayton last season for 38 games. It's likely one of the reasons why the Suns didn't make it into the playoffs despite their winning streak at the end of the regular season games. Despite the shortened season, however, Ayton put together improved numbers with 11.5 rebounds per game and 18.2 points per game on top of 1.5 blocks per game. Each of these categories are career highs for him. ESPN wrote after the return of Ayton that he had improved as a help defender and that the Suns allowed less points per game with Ayton on the floor than the Jazz did with Rudy Gobert. And when he's the closest one defending a shot, he ranks 5th in the NBA in field goal percentages allowed. That puts him on the level of others such as Anthony Davis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and DeAndre Jordan, as well as Gobert. The Suns might not have gotten a superstar as flashy as Luka Doncic when they drafted Ayton number 1 overall, but they did get a prospect that's been developing solidly and will likely have more time in the spotlight this season as one of the league's better defenders, and will also provide an offense to the tune of 18.2 points per game as of his numbers from last season. Interestingly enough, Ayton started 7 of the 8 games the Phoenix Suns ended their bubble games with. The team went undefeated during that span, and his presence on the court played a role in that. It was the first streak of 8 wins that the Suns had strung together since the 2009 season, and they were one of the last teams out of the playoff race. With Ayton not coming into this season with a suspension and the season not being shortened, there's a chance we will see the Suns step up and get a playoff spot this year off the backs of Ayton and Devin Booker. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Canada has been stepping up in recent years when it comes to bringing players into the college ranks and the NBA, and one of the leading Canadian players in the NBA right now is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is emerging in Oklahoma City in the gap that was left by Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook. The 22-year-old was selected with the 11th pick in the draft out of Kentucky, but after Chris Paul was moved to the Suns, Gilgeous-Alexander moved into an even larger role on the team by default. That's not to say that his role wasn't already big as of last season. He was the leading scorer on the Thunder already last season by the points per game metric, and that put him above Chris Paul and Danilo Gallinari. And both of these players, as well as Dennis Schroeder, were traded or left by now. As such, you can still consider this a breakout season for Gilgeous-Alexander, who is in an even stronger position to lead the team now that was previously led mainly by other stars such as Russell Westbrook and then Chris Paul. As a point guard last season, he was behind Chris Paul when it came to assists per game. Paul had 6.7, while Gilgeous-Alexander had 3.3, which looks a little concerning for a player that will have a lot more on his shoulders in this department coming into the current season. But as of now, we've already seen him step up to get to the 6 assists per game mark this season in Paul's absence. George Hill and Theo Maledon are behind him in that metric, but the Thunder really don't have another player directly competing with him like they did last season with Paul. He's also their leading scorer this season by a margin of about 8 points per game compared to the second leading scorer. When it comes to rebounds per game, Gilgeous-Alexander is third on the team and the top guard. In other words, you can expect Gilgeous-Alexander to have to put the Thunder on his back this season and lead them in multiple categories if the Thunder are going to have much success. It remains to be seen if he's up to the task, but it's impossible to deny that this is a breakout season for him based on his improvements and the increased role the Thunder are giving him this year. Caris LeVert. The Brooklyn Nets are a star-studded team, and there are a number of takes out there about whether or not putting Kyle Irving, Kevin Durant, and DeAndre Jordan on the same team will actually bring home a ring. However, it's not their star players that are important in this conversation. It's the players that give them depth who will play a big role in bringing the Nets a title. And one of their main depth players is Caris LeVert. As a small forward and shooting guard, it's easy for LeVert to get overshadowed by Durant, who is a bigger star in every metric and took away the small forward spot from LeVert the moment he signed with Brooklyn. But as of right now, LeVert is finding other ways to make an impact, and that includes stepping up in the playmaking department, where he's number 2 behind Kyle Irving in assists per game. He's also been a more consistent player for the Nets at this early point in the season, having played in more games than either Irving or Durant. And when you look at the leaders in points per game for the Nets, LeVert is at the crucial number 3 spot. Sure, Durant and Irving are going to undoubtedly lead this category, but LeVert is the kind of player that adds the depth you need beyond your main stars if you want to win in the playoffs. It was believed the Nets could be planning on moving on from LeVert and trading him to try and acquire another all-star player, but that deal hasn't happened so far, and it looks like it might not happen. After all, with LeVert, they have depth now, and for the near future, thanks to his young age of 26, the Nets might not be able to say the same thing about another player if they trade him away to acquire another star that might be older and might only stick around for a year or two to try winning a ring now in Brooklyn at the expense of the team's future potential.